Hello, welcome to Duncan Diggs Gardening. It's one of my favourite times of year. This spring has probably peaked and we're racing towards summer with reckless abandon, as the phrase goes. But it's a good way to measure the progress that your garden has made, because you look out and you can see less soil. Everything's filling out, everything's starting to come into bloom, everything's starting to grow, and the promise of much more to come is kind of staring you in the face, and it's just a really great time of year, I think, for the garden. And part of that is taking stock of the things that are finished flowering now, mostly your traditional spring bulbs. Most of the daffs are finished. Tulips are starting to wane in some cases that were slightly earlier flowering. Weeding as well, very, very important at this time of year. They take advantage of the warmer, wetter weather, just like the other plants that you actually want do. So very important that you keep on top of weeding. But ultimately as well, it's about starting to plan for those summer months. What kind of colours do you want? What kind of plants do you want? What kind of space do you have for them to go? Don't really see much space as it currently stands, but I'll force them in. It'll be fine. So yeah, that's kind of what today's episode's about, really, sort of planning for summer. It never stops, but that's okay. It's a lovely day for it, so let's crack on. So, on the subject of annuals, I wanted to give you guys a bit of a flavour of what I've gone on a bit of a spending spree about. And obviously next week we'll be discussing with my financial advisor about how to remortgage our house. But anyway, joking aside, they weren't actually that expensive, to be honest. Annuals can often be found for a really good deal in garden centres, and now's the perfect time because a lot of them have 2-for-1 offers and things like that. So there's some staples here which I rely on pretty much every year without fail. And that is lobelia and petunia. So lobelia offer this very tiny flowers which bees absolutely love, in big clusters. The ones I've picked are kind of all dual colours, reds, blues, pinks, things like that. And lobelia come in 3 habits. So you have a larger plant which is a sort of tall spears of flowers, and they tend to come back year after year as long as they're protected. You have the trailing variety, which I'm going to be placing in some of the standard roses that I've got dotted along the edge of the house. And then you have the bush lobelia, which remain compact, close to the ground, very, very good for filling a space. So that's the lobelia. The petunia, those are my favourites which I buy, Queen of Hearts and King of Hearts. And obviously I'll throw a picture up on the screen, but effectively they're stripy, so they look like candy. But I've also discovered a new one this year which is called tiramisu. So if you're not hungry by the time you finish planting them, there's something wrong with you. But anyway, so they're like a nice white which goes to that kind of sort of coffee colour in the centre. So these will be dotted around, and I'm going to be planting up a couple of pots with a combination of these things shortly. Moving on, we've then got some dahlias. Now, obviously I've covered at length some of the dahlias which I've stored over winter. These are slightly different. This one's called peppermint, lovely sort of red with white tips. And these dahlias are grown from seed effectively, and they're generally speaking not as hardy. That said, in slightly warmer parts of the country, they'll die right back, and if you're lucky, they'll pop up the next year, and you'll get a good few years out of them. But generally speaking, they're kind of bought as an annual. I would treat them as such. And then if you really, really like them and you want to chance it and try your luck, stick them in the ground, and if they come back, they come back. So we've got peppermint here, we've got happy days. I like the dark leaves with the bright pink. So they'll be quite a nice addition, and they will keep flowering for the entire summer. We've then got another staple, which is antirrhinums, snapdragons, which some you may be familiar with more, the name. I remember these from when I was a kid. We had antirrhinums in the garden. They're absolutely fantastic, really good performance. Keep deadheading them. That's crucial for pretty much all of these flowers, almost all of these flowers on here. If you keep cutting off the spent flowers, they'll keep producing and producing. And some of these antirrhinums, they lasted through winter in the front where it tends to be a bit hotter. And I got a couple of years out of them, but again, generally speaking, they'll fill a space, be nice and tall. So I'm going to probably put these in a pot at the center, so they provide that kind of centerpiece. We've got a bacopa here, which is a trailing, kind of creeping trailing habit. Very, very small white, tiny white daisy style flowers. Very, very pretty. And again, I'm going to probably plant these around the edges of pots. They'll spill over, and these will flower well into the autumn if they're looked after properly. They're also pretty good in semi-shade as well. They don't necessarily need full sun. We've got another staple of a cottage garden here, which is a Veronica, which is sort of tall white spiky flowers. Again, they're all right in shade. They don't need full sun necessarily. This is called Tissington White. I've got a couple of these, which I'm probably going to dot in the main border. But again, if you're looking for that medium height, these can kind of go about halfway back, and they should stand quite nicely above some of the ground cover plants that you've got. And then finally, last but by no means least, something new this year for me, which is marigolds. Now, these are French marigolds. This is called French Bee. And this is a standard French marigold. The reason I'm putting these in is because other than looking quite nice, and again, if you keep deadheading them, they'll keep producing flowers, and they spread quite nicely. Other than that, they're very, very good at warding off pests. So flies, slugs, snails, things like that, they don't like them, they don't eat them. Plant some marigolds around and you will help to fend off some of the pests that you have in your garden. They find them extremely offensive. Basically, they just don't like them at all. And I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere about the French, but I would never go there because I honeymooned in Paris and it's a beautiful country. Anyway, other than that, I think that's just about it. Oh, of course, how could I possibly forget? White cosmos. So I cannot recommend cosmos highly enough. They have this lovely sort of really airy, light, feathery leaves. They can be absolutely huge. I mean, I'm talking sort of up here, at least, some of the varieties. And they have these most spectacular, big, open flowers that the bees absolutely love. If you see cosmos, I've bought some white ones here. In fact, a lot of these plants are actually on the paler side, which is not like me because I normally quite like pizzazz. If you see any cosmos, I really do urge you. They're great in pretty much any soil, but they actually thrive in poor soil. So if you've got a space that you're not sure about, you don't need to mulch, you don't need to feed it particularly, plonk them in the ground. Whatever nutrients are in your soil will be absolutely fine. And as I say, keep deadheading them and they will keep producing flowers, and they're a fantastic magnet for insects. So there you go. So hopefully some ideas for your annual planting. And as I say, great time to buy them now. Plant them out, plonk them in the ground, and a couple of months' time, you'll be glad you did. Now that the camellia has finished flowering, now is the time to start thinking about a few things with camellias. First and foremost, they need regular watering throughout the rest of the year. It's really, really important you keep them hydrated and don't let them dry out. And the reason for this is that they spend the rest of the year developing the flowers for next year. You don't want to interrupt or disrupt that process in any way. So keep all camellias well watered once they've finished flowering. I've mulched this a little bit with some ericaceous because they like acid soil. I won't really feed it much more beyond this, but you can see at the top now we've actually got the first flush of new growth. I won't let this get much bigger before I decide to cut it back. There's a window of opportunity when you can do that before the flower heads start to form for next year. And if left unchecked, this will easily swamp everything else around it. And it's already a fairly big plant, and I wouldn't necessarily want it to get any bigger. So I'm going to probably leave this and just see what else sprouts from it over the next, say, few weeks. And then I'll probably prune it back by maybe a third, I would say. Obviously, you know, judge for yourselves, and the usual rules about pruning apply. Take it down to just above a node. But what we don't really want are these kind of whippy water shoots, as they're kind of called, swamping everything else. So yeah, camellias, always remember to keep them watered, and they should be fine and flower for next year. I think I've mentioned before about clematis and how important it is to sort of keep tying them in. We've got two here that are in full flow, and what I've done is I've actually angled and rotated this pot so that they're kind of pointing a little bit more towards this framework, which I want them to eventually latch onto. This one I think will be absolutely fine, and I'm just going to kind of encourage it to do so here, and I don't really think I need to do much with that. We've got a shoot that's kind of flown out towards the peony, which I want to address. Now it's already latched itself on, so I don't really want to do too much to it, but I am going to just feed it through to sort of there, just so it comes back on the inside. And I'm going to tie that in with some soft string. And the reason you do soft string, obviously, and not twine, which I think I've mentioned before, is to keep it from being damaged. So we're just going to tie that in here, nice and loose, and that'll wend its way up the rest of the frame. This one probably needs perhaps a little bit more rotation, like that. And then I think what we're going to do, we're just going to put some string around this and sort of anchor it to here. So I'm going to take a fair bit off here, like that. I'm going to try and feed it around here and just bring this across very, very slightly. And just to encourage it, that's all we're doing, we're just encouraging the growth to come across. We're not forcing it or anything like that, we're just encouraging it to go in this direction. So I'm going to do a knot like that, make sure the knot is quite tight, and then hopefully we'll get more growth going up the framework. I've just come out into the front briefly just to show you something, which of course is this lovely mass of bluebells that seems to have found its way through the bed. Except it's not lovely because they're Spanish bluebells, and I don't know if any of you have seen on the news recently. There's been a lot of chatter about Spanish bluebells. They're an invasive species, and I mean, we go over there plenty. I suppose it's only fair they send someone over here in return. But yeah, I'm going to get rid of as much of this as I can. I don't want it in my bed. I don't want it anywhere in my garden. And I'm not even sure I'm going to compost them. I think actually the done thing is potentially to actually burn them, which seems a little drastic, but there you go. And the key here is I'm going to dig them out while they're still flowering. What we don't want is to wait until they've gone to seed. They're all now in full bloom. I can't see any flowers that have started to fade. So because of that, it's the perfect time to grab them and yank them out. Now this ground is quite, it's still fairly soft. It hasn't started to harden up as we head towards summer, even though this part of the garden gets baked. But the trick with bluebells, try and dig as deep as you possibly can with a fork, loosen, and as you lift, because what you'll find is very often if you just go like that, they'll tear off and you'll be stuck and you'll never find the bulbs. So I've sent someone else ahead of me to investigate, and I'm sure he'll be plenty of help. No, he's off to the shade. Don't blame him. Anyway, keep an eye out. Spanish bluebells.